Welcome, dear friend, to the Flavor of Quiescent Thought, a journey into the heart of tranquility, designed to gently cradle your mind and guide you towards a profoundly peaceful rest. It is a quiet joy to know you have chosen to spend this time with us, seeking a moment of soft respite. If the story that unfolds brings you comfort and a sense of gentle wonder, we would be so very pleased if you were to like this recording and perhaps subscribe to our channel, so that we might share more such peaceful sojourns with you. Before we step into the Stillwater Vale, we shall begin with a little guidance for your breath, a soft invitation to settle and prepare for the calm that awaits. Should you wish to journey directly into our tale, you will find the timestamps for each chapter nestled within the description below. Do take this moment, if you will, to find a position of complete comfort, allowing your body to feel entirely supported, perhaps noticing the gentle give of your cushions or mattress beneath you, a soft yielding that invites you to release. You might adjust your coverings, creating a cozy haven, a personal sanctuary for this time of quietude. This is your own space to let the threads of the day gently unravel, inviting a deep and pervasive calm to settle over you like the softest fall of dusk. Allow the serene atmosphere of the Stillwater Vale, a place where peace itself has a delicate presence, to begin to touch the edges of your awareness, guiding you towards a state of effortless ease. Let us share a soothing breath together, if that feels right for you now. Notice, perhaps, the air as it enters, cool and fresh, flowing with a natural, unhurried rhythm through your nose, and then a gentle letting go as you exhale, as soft and quiet as a sigh of contentment. With each breath that follows, you might sense your body softening a little more, as if any lingering tightness is simply melting away, like morning mist in the gentle warmth of the sun. You could imagine, if you wish, the serene quiet of the Dewdrop Dell, the pearlescent light filtering through ancient leaves, the crystal clear waters of hidden pools. Let these tranquil images fill your mind, bringing with them a profound sense of peace. If your thoughts should wander, as thoughts sometimes do, that is perfectly all right, a natural current in the mind's gentle stream. Simply allow them to drift by, like fallen leaves on a slow-moving current, and then gently, kindly, return your attention to the rhythm of your breath or to the sound of my voice. There is truly nothing you need to do, nothing to achieve, but to listen and allow the story's gentle unfolding to carry you into a state of deep repose. Feel the quiet pulse of the Stillwater Vale, the steady, ancient beat of life, as it flows with such peaceful grace. Let it carry away any little cares, any lingering concerns, leaving only stillness in their wake. Allow yourself to become one with the harmony that awaits. As you listen to the unfolding quietude of the Flavor of Quiescent Thought, let its gentle magic envelop you, bringing you a sense of profound peace and comforting stillness. And now, let us begin our journey. Chapter 1. Arrival and Gentle Acclimation. The path, if indeed it could still be called such, had long since surrendered its distinct edges to the persistent, gentle encroachment of moss and creeping time, their tiny, soft leaves muffling the seeker's weary footfalls until they became mere impressions in the yielding earth. It was less a track deliberately trodden and more a suggestion, a faint memory of passage that wound its way with a shy reluctance towards the rumored solace of the Stillwater Vale. The air itself seemed to transform with each quiet step, growing softer, imbued with a quality of stillness that hushed the distant, mundane sounds of the world left behind, until all that remained was a low, pervasive hum, like the vale breathing its first welcome. It was a quietude so profound that the seeker found their own breath deepening in response, slowing to match the tranquil respiration of this hidden sanctuary. Ahead, where the light seemed to gather itself into a pearlescent embrace, two ancient silver-barked trees stood like serene sentinels, their branches interlacing far above to form a natural archway, their leaves the color of soft jade, filtering the unseen sun into a diffused, gentle glow. There was no gate, no barrier, only this silent invitation into a place that felt as though it had been waiting with patient grace. As the seeker passed beneath this living lintel, a subtle shift occurred, a feeling akin to stepping through a cool, invisible curtain of water, washing away the dust, not just from their cloak, but from their very spirit. The scent of damp earth, rich and fertile, mingled with the delicate fragrance of unknown blossoms, a sweet, clean perfume that spoke of things growing slowly, peacefully, in undisturbed soil. A little further, nestled into a slight hollow as if seeking the hill's gentle protection, stood a small hermitage. It was crafted from smooth, weathered timbers that had taken on the gray-brown hue of ancient rock. Its roof, a tapestry of thick, living moss, sulphurity rounded at the edges. The wooden door, unadorned and bearing the faint scent of sun-warmed wood, was slightly ajar, a silent offering of shelter. With a gentle touch, the seeker pushed it inward, the sound of its movement a mere whisper against the profound silence. Inside, the air was cool and still, carrying the faint, comforting aroma of dried herbs and old peaceful habitation. A simple wooden pallet with a neatly folded woolen cover lay in one corner, a rough-hewn table and stool in another. It was a space of utter simplicity, yet it radiated a welcome as warm and encompassing as a soft embrace. The seeker unslung their light pack, placing it carefully on the smooth, worn floorboards, each movement slow, deliberate, as if absorbing the hermitage's inherent lack of urgency. A single unglazed window, little more than an opening in the timber wall, looked out onto a tiny enclosed garden where unfamiliar plants with broad, fleshy leaves seemed to capture and hold the gentle light. There was a sense here of time having slowed to a near standstill, of seasons turning with an unhurried grace, year upon patient year. The seeker ran a hand along the window ledge, its wooden surface worn smooth by countless touches, or perhaps simply by the slow passage of peaceful ages, feeling the texture cool and reassuring beneath their palm. A profound sense of relief, unexpected in its depth, began to unspool within the seeker's chest, like a tightly wound cord at last being allowed to slacken. It was the relief of arrival, certainly, but more than that, it was the gentle easing of a burden they hadn't fully realized they carried until this very moment of its subtle release. The hermitage, in its quietude and simplicity, asked nothing, demanded nothing. It merely offered its peaceful presence, a safe harbor from a world that often felt too loud, too fast, too full of striving. Here, the only striving seemed to be that of the moss thickening on the roof, or the slow unfurling of a new leaf in the tranquil garden. As dusk began to gently weave its soft lavenders and rose pinks into the pearlescent light filtering through the western gap in the hills, the seeker sat on the threshold of the hermitage, looking out into the vale. The air grew cooler, carrying with it the fresh scent of dew beginning to form on the feathery grasses that carpeted the slopes. No sharp sounds broke the stillness, only the distant, almost inaudible murmur of water, perhaps a hidden spring finding its way amongst the roots of the ancient trees, and the occasional soft sigh of the breeze as it passed through the plume-like leaves of unfamiliar flora, a sound like the vale itself breathing deeply in its slumber. The seeker felt a weariness in their limbs, the good weariness that comes after a long, quiet journey rather than a struggle. Here, in this gentle place, even tiredness felt different, softer, more like an invitation to rest than a demand. They drew the woolen cover from the pallet and wrapped it around their shoulders, its texture soft and comforting, its scent faintly of dried lavender, and the clean essence of the vale itself. The light faded with an almost imperceptible slowness, the colors deepening for a time before dissolving into a soft, luminous dimness that was not quite darkness. A feeling of having come home, not to a place remembered, but to a state of being long sought, settled upon the seeker. It was a quiet contentment, as unassuming and as profound as the ancient stones that lay half-hidden in the landscape. Here, within the gentle embrace of the Stillwater Vale, with the scent of earth and the murmur of water as their companions, the seeker felt the first delicate tendrils of a peace that promised to run deeper than any they had known before. Their breath, now slow and even, seemed to merge with the quiet respiration of the vale, a shared rhythm of stillness and gentle life. Chapter 2. Quiet, Observation, and Connection. The first full morning in the Stillwater Vale dawned not with a sudden intrusion of light, but with a gradual, almost imperceptible brightening, as if the soft, pearlescent luminescence that filled the valley was slowly turning up its gentle wick. The seeker awoke on the simple pallet, feeling a profound sense of rest, a quality of refreshment that spoke of sleep, undisturbed by troubling thoughts or sudden awakenings. The air in the hermitage was cool and sweet, carrying the subtle earthy fragrance from the small enclosed garden just outside the unglazed window. For a long while they simply lay there, listening to the quiet sounds of the vale coming alive. The distant melodic drip of water, the soft rustle of leaves that was less a sound and more a feeling in the air. Rising slowly, the seeker moved to the doorway, stepping out onto the cool flagstones that formed a small, uneven terrace before the hermitage. The sun, still hidden behind the eastern hills, painted their rounded tops with a soft, rosy hue, while the vale itself remained in a gentle, luminous dimness, dewdrops clinging like tiny liquid jewels to every blade of grass and every broad leaf in the garden. These were not the familiar plants of the outside world. Their leaves were thick, almost fleshy, with a texture that looked like smooth, cool jade, and some seemed to hold the light within them, emitting a faint internal glow that pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm like tiny sleeping hearts. The seeker felt no urge to name them, only to observe their quiet, self-contained beauty. The small garden, enclosed by a low wall of weathered stones seamlessly integrated with the hillside, was a miniature world of its own. Moss grew in plush cushions between the stones, soft and yielding to the touch, cool and damp with the morning dew. The seeker spent a long time simply tracing the intricate patterns of lichen on one of the larger boundary stones, marveling at the complex miniature landscapes they formed, a slow artistry of time and nature. The colors were muted, subtle greens, pale grays, and ochre, yet vibrant in their quiet way. There was a deep sense of peace in this focused, gentle observation, a quieting of the mind that came from attending to such small, unassuming wonders. Later in the morning, as the diffused sunlight began to warm the flagstones beneath their bare feet, the seeker noticed a small creature watching from the edge of the feathery grasses beyond the garden wall. It was no larger than a curled fist, with fur the exact shade and texture of dandelion fluff after it has gone to seed, and large dark eyes that regarded the seeker with a calm, unwavering curiosity. It made no sound, no sudden movements, simply observed for a time, and its tiny nose twitching occasionally as it sampled the air. Then, as silently as it had appeared, it turned and vanished into the grasses, leaving behind only a faint impression on the dewy blades and a feeling of gentle companionship in the seeker's heart. The rhythm of the vale was slow, unhurried, a gentle cycle of light and quiet. The seeker found themselves falling into this rhythm effortlessly, their movements becoming more deliberate, their senses more attuned to the subtle nuances of their surroundings. The warmth of the sun on their skin as they sat on a smooth, sun-drenched rock felt like a benediction. The intricate dance of tiny iridescent insects hovering over a patch of blooming ground cover, their wings a blur of soft color, became a captivating spectacle. There were no grand vistas here, no dramatic pronouncements of nature, only a continuous unfolding of small, perfect moments, each one a testament to the beauty of simplicity. Inside the hermitage, the seeker discovered a small, shallow wooden bowl and a smooth carved spoon, clearly left by a previous occupant. There was also a small niche in the wall containing a few dried leaves of an unknown herb, which, when steeped in water warmed over a tiny, smokeless fire built from fallen twigs, yielded a pale, fragrant infusion. It tasted faintly of sweet grass and warm earth, a comforting beverage that seemed to settle both body and mind. These simple provisions felt like a quiet act of kindness, a continuation of the Vale's gentle welcome, offered across time from one seeker of peace to another. As the day drew towards its soft close, the seeker walked a little way from the hermitage, following a barely discernible path that wound along the lower slope of the valley. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp moss and the rich aroma of humus from the deeper parts of the vale. The sounds remained soft, muted. The occasional sigh of the wind through the plume-like leaves of the whisperwood trees, a sound so gentle it was like the vale itself exhaling. The light began to soften further, the pearlescent quality returning, imbuing the landscape with a serene, almost ethereal glow. There was a growing sense of connection within the seeker, not to any one thing, but to the entirety of this peaceful place. It was a feeling of belonging, of being an intrinsic part of this quiet, harmonious whole. The vale asked nothing of them, yet it seemed to offer everything: shelter, sustenance, and, most importantly, a profound and deepening stillness. The seeker returned to the hermitage as the last light painted the western hilltops in hues of soft lavender and rose, their heart quiet, their mind at ease, feeling the gentle pulse of the vale all around them, a comforting, steady beat in the profound silence. Chapter 3. Immersion in Restorative Elements. Days flowed one into the next, with the gentle, unhurried pace of water meandering through a quiet meadow. The seeker, now fully attuned to the vale's subtle rhythms, felt a quiet prompting to explore a little further than the hermitage and its immediate garden. In a small cloth-bound journal found tucked away in a niche within the hermitage, its pages filled with delicate script and faded sketches, there were mentions of a place called the Dewdrop Dell and another known as the Crystalspring Pools. The descriptions were sparse, yet hinted at unique qualities, conveyed more through the feeling in the words than through precise detail. Following a path that was more a feeling through the feathery grasses than a visible track, the seeker came upon a small, sheltered depression in the land, almost a dimple in the vale's gentle contours. Here, the air was noticeably cooler and held a particular sweetness, like honeyed air. This, the seeker sensed, must be the Dewdrop Dell. Growing in abundance were the plants depicted in the journal, low-growing flora with broad, perfectly cupped leaves of a luminous pale green, each one holding a single glistening droplet of morning dew that seemed to resist evaporation long into the day. These were the serenity cups, their surfaces so smooth the dew formed perfect, crystalline spheres upon them. Remembering the journal's gentle suggestion, the seeker knelt beside one of the larger serenity cups. The dewdrop it held was the size of a small pearl, catching the diffused light and refracting it into tiny rainbows. With a hesitant finger, the seeker touched the droplet. It felt cool, yet almost alive, and clung to their skin. Then, cupping their hand, they gently tipped the leaf, allowing the droplet to roll into their palm. It was surprisingly viscous, heavier than mere water. Raising it to their lips, the seeker tasted it. The flavor was faint, elusive, a delicate coolness with an underpinning of something subtly sweet, like the nectar of an unknown ethereal flower, or the very essence of a clean pre-dawn breeze. As the dew dissolved on their tongue, a remarkable sensation spread through the seeker's mind. It was not a dramatic shift, but rather a profound and gentle quieting, as if a soft, cool cloth had been laid across a restless brow. Thoughts that had previously murmured at the edges of awareness simply stilled. A sense of deep, untroubled calm washed over them, effortless and complete. It was the flavor of quiescent thought, a taste of pure mental peace, astonishing in its simplicity and its gentle power. The serenity cups themselves seemed to respond, their faint internal luminescence brightening just a fraction, a soft acknowledgement. Later, drawn by the distant melodic plinking of water, the seeker discovered the Crystalspring Pools. Hidden amongst a cluster of ancient moss-covered boulders, these were not large, but rather a series of interconnected basins, their waters so clear they seemed almost invisible, revealing the smooth, colorful pebbles that lined their depths. A soft, low hum emanated from the pools, a resonance that could be felt as a gentle vibration in the soles of the feet and even in the chest when one drew near. The air here was crisp and carried the clean, mineral scent of pure, untouched water. Dipping a hand into the nearest pool, the seeker found the water to be cool, yet not cold, with a surprising buoyancy. As they swirled their fingers, the surface reflected the soft sky above like a perfectly polished looking glass, undisturbed by even the slightest ripple for long moments after their hand was withdrawn. The journal had spoken of the waters imparting a feeling of weightlessness, and indeed, as the seeker sat on a smooth, mossy rock at the pool's edge, letting their feet dangle in the crystalline depths, a sensation of lightness pervaded their limbs, as if the usual pull of the earth had gently lessened its hold. With this physical lightness came a corresponding mental clarity, a sense of spaciousness within their thoughts. The Vale's flora seemed to possess a subtle empathy, responding to the seeker's deepening calm. Near the Crystalspring Pools, certain feathery ferns would unfurl a little more fully when the seeker sat quietly nearby for a time, their fronds taking on a richer, deeper green. Flowers with soft, bell-shaped heads, which usually faced the earth, would sometimes lift slightly, as if gently acknowledging a peaceful presence. These were not dramatic displays, but tiny, almost imperceptible shifts, creating a feeling of being in a responsive, nurturing environment, a gentle conversation without words between the seeker and the living essence of the Vale. Each day, the seeker would visit the Dewdrop Dell in the quiet of the morning, partaking of a single precious droplet from a serenity cup, allowing its unique flavor of peace to settle their mind. Later, they would spend time by the Crystalspring Pools, feeling the gentle hum of the waters, absorbing their clarity, and allowing the sensation of effortless buoyancy to permeate their being. These were not rituals born of duty, but gentle inclinations drawn by the profound comfort and serenity these elements of the Vale so freely offered. The journey into the Vale's heart was a journey into the heart of stillness itself. Chapter 4. Acceptance and Inner Stillness. The subtle, sweet coolness of the serenity cup dew had become a gentle, familiar comfort to the seeker, a morning blessing that ushered in each day with a profound sense of quietude. The flavor of quiescent thought, once a novel and wondrous discovery, now felt like an intrinsic part of the Vale's welcome, a natural grace, notes in the symphony of its deep and abiding peace. With each tasting, the stillness it imparted seemed to settle more deeply, to linger longer, weaving itself into the very fabric of the seeker's awareness until it became not an experience sought, but a state simply inhabited. Thoughts, those once busy occupants of the mind's inner landscape, now moved with the slow, gentle drift of summer clouds across a vast, pale sky. They would appear, soft-edged and uninsistent, float by without demand for attention, and then dissolve back into the quiet spaciousness from which they came. There was no effort in this, no practice of dismissal, merely an acceptance of their transient nature, observed from a place of settled calm. The seeker found they could sit for long stretches by the Crystalspring Pools, watching the play of diffused light upon the water's surface, without any particular thought arising at all, simply being present to the gentle light, the cool air, the soft hum of the earth. This hum, the low resonant frequency that seemed to emanate from the very soil and stones of the Stillwater Vale, had become a constant, comforting companion. At first, it had been a barely perceptible sensation, felt more in the bones than heard with the ears. But as the seeker's own inner turbulence subsided, their senses had grown more acute, more attuned to the subtle energies of the place. Now, the hum was a gentle, warm vibration that seemed to cradle them, a grounding presence that anchored them firmly in the peaceful now. Lying on a bed of soft, springy moss, warmed by the gentle, filtered sunlight, the seeker could feel this hum resonating through their entire body, a soothing lullaby sung by the ancient heart of the Vale itself. A profound sense of acceptance had taken root within the seeker, an effortless surrender to the way things were, both within and without. The weather in the Vale was changeable in its gentle way. Some days were filled with a soft, misty rain that polished the leaves to a vibrant sheen and intensified the earthy fragrance of the air, while others were bathed in that continuous pearlescent glow. The seeker welcomed both, finding beauty in the quiet drip of rain from the hermitage eaves, and in the way the light caught the dewdrops on a spider's delicately spun web. There was no preference, no wishing for things to be other than they were, only a quiet appreciation for the unfolding moment. The simple act of existing within the vale became a meditation. Walking barefoot on the cool, damp earth, feeling the different textures underfoot, the yielding moss, the smooth, worn stones, the soft crush of fallen leaves was an act of deep connection. Preparing the simple infusion from the dried herbs, watching the steam curl upwards carrying its gentle fragrance, was a moment of quiet ritual. Even the mending of a small tear in their woolen cloak, using a needle carved from bone and thread, spun from plant fibers found in the hermitage, became an act of peaceful concentration, each stitch a small affirmation of care and presence. The ancient gentle being the journal had hinted at, the Vale Guardian, remained unseen, yet their benevolent presence was often felt. Sometimes, returning to the hermitage, the seeker would find a small, perfectly ripe fruit, unknown yet exquisitely sweet, left on the threshold, or a collection of unusually smooth, warm pebbles arranged in a spiral pattern on the flat rock where they often sat. These small, silent gifts were offered without expectation, received with simple gratitude, further deepening the seeker's sense of being held and cared for within this sanctuary of peace. One afternoon, while resting by the Crystalspring Pools, the seeker observed a single perfectly formed plume leaf detach itself from an overhanging whisperwood tree. It did not fall quickly, but spiraled slowly, lazily, caught by the gentle currents of air, turning and drifting with an unhurried grace, before settling with infinite softness upon the still surface of the water. It floated there for a long moment, a tiny, perfect vessel on a clear, calm sea, and in that simple image, the seekers saw a reflection of their own journey, the letting go, the gentle descent into stillness, the quiet arrival in a place of profound acceptance. The days were no longer marked by a sense of passing time, but by the subtle shifts in light, the changing chorus of gentle sounds, the deepening of inner quiet. The flavor of quiescent thought was no longer just a taste on the tongue, but a pervasive atmosphere within the mind, a constant, gentle sweetness that permeated every perception. The seeker felt less like a visitor to the vale and more like a part of its ancient peaceful fabric woven into its tranquil tapestry, their own inner stillness mirroring the profound serenity that surrounded them. Chapter 5. Lingering Peace and Gentle Integration. A time came not marked by any calendar or external signal, but by a subtle internal shift, when the seeker knew that their sojourn in the Stillwater Vale was drawing to a gentle close. It was not a feeling of restlessness, nor a desire to leave the profound peace they had found, but rather a quiet understanding that the Vale's gifts had been fully received, absorbed into the very core of their being. The flavor of quiescent thought, once a delicate sensation to be sought, now resided within them as a constant gentle hum, an inner wellspring of calm that felt both innate and eternal. The seeker moved through these last days in the vale with a heart full of quiet joy and a profound unspoken gratitude. Each visit to the Dewdrop Dell to partake of its crystalline offering was less about seeking stillness and more a gentle communion, an acknowledgement of the source of this inner peace. The serenity cups seemed to glow with a particularly soft and welcoming light, their silent blessing a farewell and a promise that their essence would travel forth. The waters of the Crystalspring Pools, too, seemed to reflect a deeper clarity, their gentle vibrations a confirmation of the resonant calm now firmly established within the seeker. The hermitage, their simple, comforting shelter, felt imbued with this lingering peace. The worn wooden surfaces, the scent of dried herbs, the very air within its walls seemed to hold the essence of countless quiet moments of deep rest and gentle awakenings. The seeker spent time tidying the small space, refolding the woolen cover, leaving the shallow bowl and spoon precisely as they had found them, a silent gesture of thanks to those who had come before and those who might yet come, seeking the Vale's solace. In the small journal, they added no words, only a single pressed whisperwood leaf, a token of their own peaceful passage. There was no sadness in the thought of departure, for how could one truly leave a place that had become so intrinsically a part of oneself? The Stillwater Vale was not merely a location on a map, but a state of being, a quality of awareness that the seeker now carried within the quiet chambers of their own heart. The pearlescent light, the soft murmur of water, the gentle hum of the earth, the sweet taste of peace. These were not memories to be cherished, but living presences, accessible now from wherever the seeker might find themselves. On the morning chosen for departure, the Vale seemed to offer its most gentle farewell. A soft mist hung in the air, diffusing the early light into an ethereal glow. Each dewdrop on the feathery grasses and broad serenity cup leaves shining like a tiny captured piece of dawn. The air was still and cool, carrying the mingled scents of damp earth, sweet pollens, and the clean fragrance of the crystal springs. The usual sounds of the Vale were softened further by the mist, creating an atmosphere of profound and tender quietude. The seeker took one last slow walk through the Dewdrop Dell, one last moment by the whispering pools, their heart overflowing with a simple, wordless appreciation. As the seeker reached the two ancient silver-barked trees that marked the Vale's gentle boundary, they paused, turning back for a final look. The Vale lay serene and luminous in the morning mist, a vision of perfect peace, its gentle contours softened, its colors muted and harmonious. It felt unchanged, eternal, a sanctuary that would always be there, holding its quietude for any weary soul who might find their way to its embrace. A soft breeze stirred the jade-colored leaves of the sentinel trees, a sound like a gentle sigh, a blessing whispered on the quiet air. Stepping out from beneath the arching branches, the seeker felt not a jarring transition, but a smooth continuation. The air beyond the Vale felt subtly different, yes, carrying more varied scents and sounds, but the inner stillness remained, a calm anchor in a wider world. The path ahead, though perhaps less yielding than those within the Vale, seemed lighter, easier to tread. The journey forth was not into an absence of peace, but into a world now perceived through the lens of that peace, a world where the echo of the Vale's gentle hum could still be felt, a quiet reminder of the profound calm that always resides within. The seeker carried the flavor of quiescent thought with them, not as a memory, but as a living, breathing part of their renewed spirit, a soft exhalation of tranquility into the waiting day.